The years had not been kind to Anduin Wrynn, not since the loss of his father. Year after year, further Stormwind came along, the clearer it became that Azeroth was a far darker, far worse place, not simply for the passing of the warrior king Varian Wrynn, or for the Alliance's position as a power, but also for Anduin himself, who had felt lost without his father's guidance. His nights were often filled with dread and nightmares, born of his insecurities and a desire to be seen as a beacon of hope for his people. All the guidance and comfort that the light afforded him had long since fled, leaving behind an emptiness and a growing unease, and for the last several weeks, these nightmares had only gotten worse.
Father! Father! I'm coming for you! I'm here to save you! Please, just hold on! Wait for me to get there!
Anduin, my son, you need...
What? What is it? Father, what are you trying to tell me?
Try as he might, Anduin could only struggle, sinking as if in a mire, and the more he fought against it, the more his legs stiffened and sank into the mud. Deeper, ever deeper into interminable darkness, Anduin would go. It was the same tonight as it was every other night, his father standing there, reaching out for him, incapable of finishing what he was saying while Anduin is pulled away, awoken with a start, drenched in sweat.
Another dream. Why do I still have them? Even after all this time. Oh, Father. What are you trying to tell me? Are you truly reaching out to me? Or am I simply losing my mind from all this stress?
Anduin couldn't tell, as his thoughts drifted towards his father and towards old Will Benton, who had died several years prior. And to the others he had lost, sleep didn't return. Gloomily, Anduin sat in his bed, stared out the window towards the rising sun, over distant walls and steepled roofs, dreading his duties to come.
I suppose I'd better get dressed. I have no doubt I'll be tested further in the coming hours.
In the hollowed halls of Stormwind Keep, the gathering of the kingdom's elite began taking place. Representatives of Stormwind's noble houses, numbering about a dozen in all, claimed their positions within the throne room, many situating themselves as close to the throne as they could, aiming to be in clear sight of King Anduin and garner his attentions. This was all too common an occurrence, an endless pursuit of Anduin's good graces, a tale as old as the kingdom's foundation, all for the sake of enhancing their own image, advancing their power, or personal goals. A rat race unlike any other. And today would be no different. Anduin felt eyes upon him the moment he entered the throne room. Conversations quieted, the crowd parted, bowing to let their liege walk by. At his side, Genn walked faithfully in tow, a dutiful symbol of the young ruler's authority. Many of the nobles here Anduin had only vague memories of, from a time during his father's reign. They had paid him nary a grain of attention, as their focus had completely been on his father and the affairs of the kingdom. Now they were solely on him, gathering to show their devotion to his rule, as if they had never ignored him to begin with. Positioned close to the throne, royal guards remained steadfast and silent as their king approached. Their armor was pristine, with gauntlet-covered hands resting upon the hilts of their blades, ready to draw them at a moment's notice. Anduin stared at the throne for only the briefest of moments, the two gilded lions positioned at either side, staring back at him, expressionless and protective. The throne itself was imposing. It towered over the large chamber with elegant engravings along its thick frame. Anduin could remember being a child and sitting upon the steps of its dais, blissfully unaware that he would one day take his father's place. Each marble step he put his foot on added weight to Anduin's shoulders. It was as if gravity itself desired to force him back down. But he persevered, pushing himself to honor the privilege he had a rightful claim to. Slowly, Anduin turned and lowered himself down on the marble throne, with Genn standing close by, acting as yet another guardian for the young king. All eyes were upon him now, And Anduin knew he couldn't make them wait any longer.
Lords and ladies, I welcome you to this gathering. Let us proceed to the matters of our kingdom. I am ready to hear from each and every one of you.
The throne room was silent, save for the occasional hushed whisper or the rustling of papers by a scribe, readying notation for the coming discussion's most poignant points. Among those present within the throne room, a courtier stepped forward, unraveling a scroll to read its contents aloud.
Lord Auberon Ellerian.
A section of the crowd parted to let the refined form of Lord Auberon Ellerian through. The man was a fine example of the Ellerian line, blonde hair and sharp but elegant features. Anduin had inherited these same traits from his mother, Tiffin Ellerian. Lord Auberon moved with the courtly manner expected of his role. Adorned in the finest attire, Auberon first bowed before his king and then stood tall as he briefly cleared his throat to speak.
Pleasant tidings to you, my king.
And to you, great uncle. What matters do you present to the court?
I present matters that I believe both my colleagues and I feel must be addressed. The growth of our kingdom must be discussed. Recent events have made a need for solidifying our kingdom's coffers arise. The passing of your father, the former king. It has left many citizens questioning whether a crisis will befall us financially.
What exactly are you proposing?
Quite simply, the expansion of Stormwind's industries. Expanding the East Vale logging camp, getting the commoners back into the fields of Westfall, and renewing our efforts in Red Ridge. We have many resources at our disposal that need to be put to use. I doubt that our allies will always be there to assist us, so it is wise to be self-sufficient.
I request that you do not speak ill of our allies within these halls, uncle.
Many apologies, my king. I am simply speaking on behalf of my colleagues, who have reasonable doubts concerning the effectiveness of those closest to our kingdom. But as I was stating, we have far too many idle bodies not pulling their own weight within the kingdom. Resources that could heavily assist in increasing Stormwind's funds must be pursued.
And at what cost do you plan to achieve such a goal?
I believe I was speaking to my king, Lord Greymane. However, if you must know, the cost will be minimal to Stormwind, and we will still reap the benefits. We simply need to force the commoners to work for the betterment of the kingdom. A few extra hours of labor to supply the force that protects them.
So, borderline slave labor. Have you not learned from the stonemason riots? You'll be repeating history.
Whispers morphed into shouts as the nobles within the throne room called out Genn's statement. But one voice demanding Genn's silence rose above the rest. Baron Aldous Lescovar. The man towered over his fellow nobles, imposing and brutish.
Mind your own, Greymane! This has nothing to do with the likes of you! This is our kingdom!
Aldous' harsh words did not go unopposed. Standing just across from him, the young Lord Joran Tremaind stared daggers into the man. Here to represent the interests of his family in East Vale as a whole, Joran made his own stance against the burdening of the common folk known.
This is not just about our kingdom. This is about the people's future, and forcing them to labor day and night will only destroy all the progress we have built.
Before Anduin could silence the throne room himself, Lord Auberon had already achieved it with a simple gesture of his hand. The Lord's eyes locked with Greymane's, whose own burned with distrust for the Stormwind noble and his blasted politicking.
If supporting the growth of Stormwind internally does not interest you, Lord Greymane, then perhaps the exterior growth is more to your liking. The Stranglethorn Vale is ripe for the taking. The trolls who reside there have always been a threat to our borders. I believe that it is time to be rid of them for good, and use the land's rich resources to our own advantage.
I must object to this, Lord Auberon. Expansion is not what we need. If we are to march across the continent claiming whatever we want at the edge of a sword, we will be no different than Garrosh.
And that is the issue, my king. The brute and his followers will grow stronger across the sea as they consume everything in their way. They hold no care for civilization and will work their own people to the bone to achieve their goals. This bleeding heart stance, made so popular within the Alliance, will drain Stormwind dry unless we take drastic measures to solidify our position. Caring for the discomfort of the commoners is a waste of energy. Our enemy will hold no such restraint, so why must we?
And who will benefit the most from this proposed expansion of yours? Stormwind or the House of Nobles? We have no time for foolish profiteering rackets that will drain Stormwind of its morality, just so the coffers of opportunists can thrive.
The order that had existed within the throne room then crumbled. There was shouting, bickering, and debating between Greymane and Lord Auberon, and the House of Nobles chose sides in it all. The majority joined with Lord Auberon, while only a few outliers aligned to Greymane. Lines were drawn while more spiteful battles were waged between individuals on both sides. Baron Aldous Lescovar towered over Lord Joran Tremaind, the brute of a man staring down at his younger foe. But Joran did not flinch, nor let himself be intimidated. It had reached such a point that Aldous boldly shoved Joran, expecting the man would buckle, only for Joran to hold his ground, steadfast and firm.
Go back to hiding under your mother's skirt, boy. Let the real lords handle matters here.
And allow a pig-headed fool like you to ruin everything we have. I'd rather die than see our kingdom face such a fate.
The throne room turned to chaos. Lord turned against Lord with displays of sword measuring and verbal stabbing being waged against one another, senseless and leading nowhere productive. All Anduin could do was watch as it unfolded. He could feel his already low morale slipping further away from him, his hand resting upon his forehead, the mild pains of a brewing headache beginning to form. He tried to rally himself, to muster the power to silence those present, but all he could do was witness it all unfold, while his royal guards stood close at hand to ensure he was not dragged into the melee. This was only the beginning of his courtly duties today. Anduin could not help but dread what was to come and wish for it all to end. It was later, after the meeting with the nobles had fallen apart, that Anduin returned to his private quarters to be alone. His responsibilities as king was already weighing heavily on him. He had hoped that the nobles, seeing their citizens' low morale at home and their allies' plight in Kalimdor, would have rallied them together or brought hope to those in dire need of it. However, reality was far different than he had ever imagined. Now he realized his own naivety. At least here, in his room, he was far removed from the politicking and the uncertain eyes of his castle staff. He could relax and consider his next steps carefully. For years, Genn had done his very best as regent of the realm, but Anduin knew he had to step up if he was going to be like his father.
Well, that went worse than expected. Father always made it look easy. Even Genn was able to control them better than I could tonight. Why is it they choose now of all times to squabble and fight when we should continue our rebuilding efforts? I was hoping they'd place their grievances aside, that we'd seek a sense of hope for the future. Yet, do I strike a less imposing figure than my father? Am I going about it all wrong?
Oh, it would certainly be that, I'm sure. After all, the legends of Logosh were known far and wide. And who would want to be the person to stand up to such a figure?
Who? What? Wrathion! By the light. I thought you died in the siege! But I had a feeling that you survived. It's been too long.
You're quite right. I'm far too stubborn to die, and far too resourceful. And to answer your question, the window. Another shining example of my ingenuity, my natural-born ability to fly.
If only we were all so lucky. But where have you been, Wrathion? I would have thought you'd be eager to let us know that you at least survived.
I've been here and there. Despite everything, the chaos did let me avoid any prying eyes while searching for allies and other such things. But bear it no mind. The siege, however...
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring up old wounds during our first meeting in so long.
Ah, very true. Our reunion should be at least a little merry. Prince Anduin. Or should I say, King Wrynn?
Yes, I'm still getting used to the title.
I'd imagine so. And yes, you could say it's an old wound. But wounds do heal. They just take time. I suppose the only plan that had ever gone fully through since then was yours, to destroy the Divine Bell. It only delayed what became inevitable, but it was still a success.
Yes, but these days, failure seems to be our constant companion.
The destruction of the Divine Bell left its scars too. Does your leg still hurt?
Only when I think back to those days.
At least you have a lot to keep your mind busy. I'm sure there are thoughts you'd rather escape from, now that you've been crowned king. I overheard a part of your mumbling when you entered. What do you intend to do with your current problem?
Truthfully, I'm uncertain. Genn Greymane has done excellently as Regent of Stormwind, ruling in my father's stead. But as he has said these last few years, I was always meant to be king. He's right. Stormwind needs a leader now who can bring back hope. We've been downtrodden for years, and it seems there is no light at the end of this tunnel. Stormwind needs someone who can embody strength, certainty, and compassion for us all. Someone that the people can rally around. Yet, the nobles seem more interested in themselves and how to best protect their own interests rather than the citizens they're supposed to work for.
Yes, that does sound like quite the conundrum. Unfortunately, fear brings out the worst in people. When faced with death, many run. Few face it and choose to fight.
And I see that, now more than ever. I was too optimistic to understand why before. All my life, I've been surrounded by good, brave people. Bolvar Foredragon protected me when I was a boy. Matthias Shaw worked diligently without fear, even if he knew each day could be his last. Every soldier who dons their armor does so knowing that they may be called to war from one moment to the next. Even our allies. My father proved stalwart in the face of hardships and storms. It's something I admire deeply about them all. But I can still empathize with the nobles. Most of them are not soldiers. Lord Ellerian had brought up several points during the meeting, and I couldn't help but empathize with him most of all.
Well, if it helps, compassion and understanding aren't signs of weakness. You can always see both sides of a conflict, Anduin. It is admirable, even if it eventually leads you to more trouble.
Perhaps. And yet, what of you, Wrathion? Again, why have you shown up after being away for so long? Surely you didn't just come to talk.
Maybe I did. Maybe I wanted the comfort of an old friend in these dark times. In fact, I see an old chessboard in front of a fireplace. Since I'm the esteemed guest of the King of Stormwind for a while, do you fancy a game?
Of course. No one else has wanted to play in years. I might be rusty, though.
A fact I intend to take advantage of.
Wrathion took his seat opposite Anduin. Fire in the hearth was already a low smolder from an earlier servant tending it, but despite the low burn, its light still made their shadows stretch, distending against the far wall. Wrathion reclined further back into the broad-built chair, eyeing the board's totality, while Anduin leaned further in, focused on his side and the moves that he could make, each a reflection on how they approached a problem. Wrathion played first as he pushed a pawn forward and eyed Anduin to glean insight into his next move.
Don't think I haven't noticed how you've avoided answering my questions about where you've been.
Have I? Well, I came to interrogate you, not the other way around.
Ah, but you are smart enough to already know what I might say.
You flatter me, your majesty. Well, let me spare a few words on myself. Like this current game, I had a plan. But unfortunately, it fell through, and now I'm at a loss. I intended to give a measure of power to some worthy champions of Azeroth, so they make sure Hellscream's regime collapsed.
Which I'm guessing did not work.
Correct. No one was worthy enough to step up to the challenge. I needed champions who were strong, capable, intelligent, and not swayed by their loyalty to the Horde or Alliance, but to Azeroth herself. When that plan failed, I retreated for a while.
I understand. The heroes who came before us made things seem so easy. My father and Genn lived through such horrible times that I can barely fathom it, even now. In fact, my father lived through the burning of Stormwind during the First War and had to flee the city of Lordaeron. I remember him telling me the stories of running through the streets as the orcs came, watching everything collapse around him. He was a child at the time, and despite all of his strength, he said he still had nightmares of those days sometimes.
He was an impressive man. Genn Greymane and all the brave souls who survived these tumultuous years were also remarkable. Maybe we're not strong enough yet to stand as tall as they did.
Are you implying you're not?
I thought I was. On that fateful day, I watched a mother sacrifice herself to save so many others, and her son would have to live without her.
I doubt Azeroth would wait for us to be that strong, though.
And if we did it together?
Where would we even begin? I've been crowned and finished a speech about bringing hope and certainty to Stormwind and the Alliance. A speech I can barely take comfort in myself, but I can't abandon. I can't abandon it all now. Not when everyone else is counting on me.
Perhaps, but you often speak of your father. What made Varian Wrynn to Logosh, and into the king who commanded such great respect, was his enduring of hardships, and his learning of lessons on his travels. He built his strength of his mind and body with each trial he faced, and every tribulation he overcame. There is a difference between fear and respect. Varian Wrynn commanded that respect not as a cudgel, but as a shield. The obstacles he overcame tempered him like steel, molding him into the man many knew. Ask yourself this, Anduin Wrynn. What do you have to your name other than being his son?
I guess nothing.
This isn't to belittle you. Why would anyone trust a mere boy with their kingdom or their world?
Are you suggesting that I leave it all behind? To do what? To find my strength on my own terms? And discover what makes me who I am?
I said nothing of the sort. That is all your conjecture. Checkmate, by the way.
Their game of chess came to an end, and the board was cleared so that another could start. Outside the castle, the rest of Stormwind remained just as restless as they were, as they had been for years. The foul winds that blew across the ocean eventually settled to a cool morning. The storm within the city began anew. While some wished for better times, others sought to enrich themselves from the turmoil that brewed. But both Anduin and Wrathion strove to bring some measure of order to the world, either to their people or to Azeroth. But both looked inwardly to think about what they needed to do now, before it became too late.